Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the February 19th, 2021 Muslim Space Jummah Khutbah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the February 19th, 2021 Muslim Space Jummah Khutbah. Inna alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم من يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praises belong to Allah. We praise Him and we ask Him for forgiveness and for guidance and for forgiveness. And we seek protection in Allah from the malice of our own souls and the evils of our own actions. Whoever Allah guides, no one can lead him astray or her astray. And whoever He lets to go astray, no one can lead him or her back to the straight path. I bear witness that there is no other deity or God except Allah, by Himself, no associates with Him. And I bear witness that Muhammad is His slave and His messenger. O you who have believed, be mindful of Allah and do not die except as a Muslim. O you who have believed, be mindful of Allah and always say a word directed towards the truth, so that He can make your conduct whole and sound, forgive you for your sins, and whoever obeys Allah and His Messenger has attained the highest achievement. What a week, folks. For those of you outside the great state of Texas, you may have heard, read, or seen the havoc wreaked by the unusually cold weather this past week. With the freezing temperatures, the electric utilities infrastructure froze over and could not deliver electricity to homes, leaving millions without power. Then with the freezing temperatures, we've had problems with water, with burst pipes, leaks in homes, and the water utilities finally have been unable to deliver water to all. And for those who still have running water, there's a boil alert. For those without water, there's also no word when it's going to return. In the city of Austin alone, this morning I read there's about at least 10,000 leaks that are occurring right now. That's including burst pipes, I believe. We're seeing this tragedy play out on many levels. The weather has been incredibly cold, sub-zero temperatures, interrupting infrastructure, including shelters for the homeless and for those who've lost heat. And don't forget, this is on top of a pandemic where social distancing is still very important. Loss of water, as I mentioned. I read last night that millions of gallons of drinking water have been ordered and are being delivered, with some type of distribution plan being worked on as of last evening. Power is slowly being restored in the Central Texas region, but it's unknown when water service is going to be restored to all. Some have been fortunate to stay with friends and relatives, and some will be returning back to their homes, and hopefully their homes are intact without burst pipes. Many of you here today on the service have lost something this past week: power, water, your warm home. We're seeing this played out in emotional trauma. The sub-freezing temperatures and lack of sleep are a strain on our health and our immune systems. Compound that with the loss of heat in homes. I've seen on social media now, some homes have gone down to 37 degrees, and the residents are wearing winter coats 24/7 if they have no other place to go. I've seen other traumatic stories where I just last night read a story of a family. They've been sleeping in their car in their driveway for the past few days with their 6-month-old baby. They wanted to avoid shelters because of COVID. The mom's been heating the baby's bottle on a barbecue to make formula. Roads have not been passable until recently. We've had friends who drove very early on in unsafe conditions to get to another friend's home safely. I've seen images now on social media of shelters that have been abandoned because of burst pipes. And then also there's hunger. Getting to and from grocery stores was impossible, has been impossible for many people. And the weather's finally breaking. Lines at stores were an hour to 2 hours long. And then once you get in, little was left. I had a friend who reported that in her store, all that was left was ice cream. Let's also not forget the emotional trauma. Many of you are isolating due to the pandemic and waiting to get vaccinated. That rollout is another mess. And this is compounding on top of that. Emotionally, many of us are scared. When is this going to end? When will my water return? For those of you that don't have power, when is my power going to be restored? Will a pipe burst? Hopefully not with the weather changing. Some of us are feeling some remorse. I should have been prepared, but I didn't. There's also feelings of betrayal and anger. Many of us are learning how and why this happened and want to assign blame, and there's plenty to go around. There's confusion. How can this happen here? We claim to be the number one country in the world, so how can something like this happen? There's resentment. Some of us have and some of us don't. Some of us were totally fine and others who completely lost a lot. There's also guilt. For those of us who were minimally impacted, there's some guilt. And then there's also sadness for loss and grief. For those of us who've had power restored and water restored, there's relief. But still, many of you are still without water. It's very normal and very understandable to experience all of these feelings, one after the other, and many times going back and forth across those emotions. By trying to avoid them or shutting them down, it's not human. Then also on the other end, out of this tragedy, we've also seen many actions on social media where people have expressed kindness and community. People have been sharing their homes. People have been delivering food to people who've been isolated. The very simple act of reaching out to each other and checking on each other is good enough. We experienced that this morning from an unexpected place, and it was heartwarming to hear that from that person. They actually took the time to check in on us. That was very nice. But then we also have to think now that this is slowly coming to an end for many of us, but it's not over for a lot of us. What's in the future? How do we prepare for this emotionally and physically? For those of us that have experienced the brunt of it, those of us who've had to leave our homes to stay with others, those of us who are in our homes but have lost electricity and water, just know that you've gotten through it or you're getting through it, but then there will be a next time. And now we all know the next time there's a weather event, and there will be more, we should have provisions ready: water, dry goods, batteries, and so on. And understand also that when we're comfortable, we're going to experience loss. As Allah tells us in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 155, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Quote, we will certainly test you with a touch of fear and famine and loss of property and souls and fruits. Give good news to those who patiently endure, those who when affliction befalls them say, truly we are God's, and to him we will return, unquote. Remember, Allah is Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. He is the merciful and the bestower of mercy. Allah is mercy. He can and will bestow his grace upon you. For everything we see here is a temporary state, and for some, the state is easier than for others. I want to also remind you of the prayer in chapter 3, verses 26 and 27. قل اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك من تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الحي ميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. Quote, say, O Lord, owner of the kingdom, you give authority to whomever you want and take it away from whomever you want. You honor whom you will and you humble who you will. In your hands is all virtue, and you have power over all things. You cause the day to enter into the night, and the night to enter into the day. You cause the living to come out of the dead, and the dead to come out of the living. You give sustenance to whomever you want without measure. Unquote. Remember, Allah is above all, and in his hands he is the master of all creation and all phenomena. Nothing happens without his will. We have to remember at all times, my brothers and sisters, that all of our comforts are from Allah and all of our comforts are temporary. Most of us are fortunate that this current thing right now is a temporary situation. Not to say that it's easy, but just about all of us are going to eventually to be able to return to our prior comfortable homes, potable water, and etc. But that's not going to be true for all. The homeless are still going to be homeless. The children in the foster system are still going to be in the foster system. People who've been abused and are hiding from that are still going to be hiding. I want to remind you all of the example of Khadija radiallahu anha, the Prophet's first wife, and about the time of the ban. You see, Khadija was a woman who was of extreme wealth and was known for being generous. She was a lady of luxury and a lady of class. After she and the Prophet married, and before the revelation, she would always ask the Prophet about getting a new cloak, a cloak commensurate with his status, and he would always decline and say, I'm fine, no problem. And then years later, after the revelation, specifically 7 years after revelation, the Quraysh instituted a boycott on the fledgling Muslim community. The goal was to pressure another clan to drop protection of Muhammad and his followers so they could basically kill them. And remember, this whole area is not a very lush area. It was a desert with little vegetation. So imagine a ban that lasted 3 years of no trade, no communication, house arrest, and so on. This led to 3 years of hunger, 3 years of being cut off from your extended family, because that was everything. As a result, people were starving to the point they had to eat leaves off of trees. This was for years, not a week. Khadija herself, radiallahu anha, would spend generously and feed these people to the point that she exhausted all of her wealth. A year later, she died after the ban. A year after the ban was lifted, she died. Some attribute her death to the stress of her own starvation as a result of supporting the community. I want to remind myself and remind all of you to contemplate this degree of support, this degree of belief, this degree of generosity. As a side note, I'm also saying in no way restrict your help to Muslims only. We have to help all those around us in need, all of our neighbors, all of our community. But just think about that, what she did, and think about what we are doing, those of us who can give. And the last part of the first khutbah, I want to remind myself and you to be in a state of constant gratitude. When times are good, it's easy to give thanks. When times are tough, it's harder. But be thankful for what you had when times were easy. There are verses upon verses upon verses in the Quran reminding us to be grateful to Him. We can be very grateful for the simple things, for the air we breathe, the vision from our eyes, our hearing, our touch, and so on. There's too many to count. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. I say the saying of mine, and I seek forgiveness from Allah for me and for you, and to the rest of Muslims who ask Him for forgiveness. He is the forgiver, the merciful. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In the name of Allah, all praises and exaltations to Allah, and peace and blessings on the Prophet, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. I want you all to think about what this event has also exposed, the huge gap between the haves and the have-nots. Some of us are going to be fine, as I mentioned, and many of us are not, as I mentioned again. Consider those who live paycheck to paycheck. Many have just enough provisions at home to last until the next paycheck. If their work has been closed this past week, what does that mean for their next payday? How about those who depend upon the municipalities and social support services for support? I mentioned before the shelters for the homeless. Some of them have burst pipes and have been abandoned. How about those students who get their lunches at school, or at least delivered to the school where they can pick them up, but that's not available anymore? These are the people in our community who are on the edge. I personally know people who live check to check and cannot withstand any type of shock to their wallet and cannot even withstand any kind of repair or repairs. There is no cushion for them. Consider how events played out during the time of Revelation. The Ansar in Medina opened their homes, shared their food, gave of theirs to help the migrants, the Muhajirin from Mecca. If you've been able to do that this past week, may Allah reward you for your generosity, and may Allah provide you more so you can do this again. Folks, climate change is here. The oceans are warming, so we're going to see more extreme weather. We're going to see colder colds, hotter hots, stronger and nastier hurricanes as a result of the warmer water, more tornadoes inland, more inland hurricanes. The melting glaciers are leading to rising waters already. It's going to create more flooding. By 2100, many of our cities will be gone. We're going to be seeing population migration. We're going to see more days over 100 degrees in the southern climates. We're going to see farmland moving northward. We're going to see more droughts. The list goes on and on. It's a fact. It's not if, it's when. This reality is really the most pressing issue of our times. And the ones who are going to be affected the most are those without the cushion, the homeless, the elderly without family, those being paid minimum wage, those in the foster system, women and children in shelters for the abused, and I can go on. We need to stand up and push our leadership to address this climate change. We can't stop the changes because it's already happening, but we can mitigate them to some degree. We have to elect leaders who understand what's going to happen and can institute policies to address the coming changes immediately and for the short and for the future. Upgrading, preparing infrastructure, improving the systems that help the downtrodden, systems to warn us to prepare for severe weather events like we already have for hurricane warnings. It's our duty. So keep this in mind every election cycle. And finally, I also want to make a note that there are those within our community who are saying that these disasters have been predicted in the Quran and this is the end of times. Whether that's true or not, it doesn't excuse us from taking care of others, and we can't shirk our duty to others. We are Allah's representatives on this earth. We have to act accordingly. Whether climate change is Allah's command or result of our own hands or both, doesn't matter. This is a chance and an opportunity for those of us who have more to show Allah we know our luxuries don't belong to us and are meant to be shared. It's an opportunity to ask Allah for more to help others. It's a chance to ask Allah for His grace when we are in need and we are in trouble. And all of us are always in need, all of us. It's a chance to contemplate where we are as an individual, where we are as a family, as a community, and as a country. Folks, I also want to remind you that Muslim Space is a community. If you are in need, please ask for support. We all want to help. Some of us who are least affected wanted to help others and support others. This community is here for you during times of need, during times of happiness, and during mundane days. I want to close with a dua. I ask you, Allah, to help us during this stressful time. You are the creator of all, and you are Al-Basit, the expender. Please expand our hearts to be able to always help one another. Ya Allah, we depend upon you completely for our lives and for our comfort. Please provide physical and emotional support for us and for those who are still dealing with the loss of homes, loss of friends and family, and loss of material goods. Ya Allah, help us to be true representatives of you on this earth. Help us to be strong for those who are weak. Help us to provide comfort for those who are in distress. Help us to bring happiness into the lives of those who are experiencing sadness and loss. Ya Allah, help us to remain calm in these times of stress. Help us to keep a humble heart in times of plenty. And Allah, Ya Rabb, show us the way to take advantage of our gifts to help others always, no matter how seemingly small our gifts may be. Ya Allah, help us to reflect on this past week and on the upcoming weeks, and for those of us who are still in the middle of this trauma, and help us to grow as a result. And Allah, please accept our prayers, accept our du'as, accept all of our du'as and all of our prayers, especially those who are in the most trouble, and help us to help others. Ameen. Okay, folks. Thank you for joining today. These are the announcements for the upcoming Muslim Space events. want to remind you all that every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time, we have chaplain office hours. They're available online. We have an in-house chaplain, Usama Melik, who's a master's of divinity. It's an opportunity for you to check in with a chaplain on any matter, with the focus being on your faith path, life's challenges, spirituality, current events. Chaplaincy services are attended for and open to all members of the community, not just for those who may be in a rough patch. And we have a YouTube channel. Osama has put a very nice video up on the Muslim Space YouTube channel, a message about this past week and the weather. Please check it out. It's very short. Tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, we're going to continue the prophetic biography class. It's a community course. We invite you to participate in a group discussion based on the class offered by Diane Claremont. It's one that's being the prophetic biography taught by Dr. Jonathan A.C. Brown. Muslim Space has put together a 3-month guide to complete this course as a group and engage in meaningful conversations bi-weekly beginning January 9th. The class can be accessed only by paid subscribers. You can sign up directly with Diane for $10 a month or $100 a year. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. They have a whole bunch of platforms and classes on their platform. If the cost is a barrier to participation, please email Muslim Space to have the cost subsidized for you. There's a whole dedicated page on the website for a syllabus and course content. Sunday, the 21st of Sunday at 10 a.m. Central Time is the first Spiritual Connections group. This is basically a group, for groups to get together and just discuss where they are in their spirituality. Also on Sunday, February 21st at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock a.m. on Central Time, the Youth Islamic Studies Circle starting at 10 and the Quran Reflection class at 11 o'clock. You'll need to register for these classes because there's been some Zoom bombing going on. Please go to the Muslim Space website to register. The Quran Reflection class is a reflective and interactive discussion on one's personal understanding of selected Quranic verses, appropriate for men and women, women and men. Please bring your favorite Quran books and material to reference. This month's topic is Parables of the Quran, the story of Balqis in Surah An-Naml, chapter 27, verses 20 through 44. If you'd like to volunteer and present a brief analysis of the parable, please contact Muslim Space. The Youth Islamic Studies Circles for children in preschool and kindergarten, elementary school, middle and high school. This month's topic is Love of Family, again on Zoom. Youth class at 10 Central, adult at 11 Central. Book club will be next Friday, the 26th, the week from last night, 6:30 p.m. And the book will be Purification of the Heart by Hamza Yusuf. Here's the blurb. It's an exploration of Islamic spirituality, which delves into the psychological diseases and cures of the heart. Diseases examined included miserliness, envy, hatred, treachery, rancor, malice, ostentation, arrogance, covetousness, lust, and other afflictions that assail people and often control them. Please make sure you're on the WhatsApp group and consider becoming a sustaining supporter. And that's about it all.